Not seen since 2005. And before that, 1987 is the joining together of Mars, the god of aggression, conflict, and war, but also the powerful ability to take action, make decisions, be determined, and take a certain direction as we decide, which is a Mars function, which way to go in each of our lives, with the amplification of the North Node. You heard me right. Mars, in the sign of his home kingdom of Aries, will join with the North Node on the 18th and 19th of the month of May. And this will be something we have not seen, as I said, since 2005 and 1987, and even before that, 1968. And it is the rarity of this event that makes it so important. So we're going to talk about how this conjunction between the North Node of the moon, the node of fate in Aries with Mars, can impact you based on your sun, moon, and rising sign. Now, when we're talking about your rising sign, it is really probably the best way to approach it, the most accurate. However, listening for your sun sign is also useful. It does represent the career purpose and the reason for your soul being here on Earth, and it can relate to your father and father figures. The moon is your body. It is your home and nest. It is your mother and mother figures. And in that regard, you can listen for all three. So welcome. If you're new to my channel, welcome, welcome. My name is Lori Lothian, and I am using the Western Tropical Zodiac whole sign houses. Fixed stars and minor asteroids are my favorite things to include. We will add the asteroid Minerva. Not only is she a goddess of wisdom and knowledge, but she's also a goddess of war. And she is in a relationship to this Mars North Node conjunction. It's harmonious. It's called a sextile. We'll discuss how that might look for you and also for the world, because we could all use a little knowledge and wisdom in forming our drastic, rash, and powerful decisions that we may make under the influence of Rahu North Node. Rahu and North Node are one same thing with Mars. And I'm going to tell you some stories about this, and so you can understand cycles in your own life as well. And we'll cover just a little bit of world events. What I mean is like what's going on in the larger world, including in matters of war. Why would I want to talk about war? Because Mars is a god of war in the sign of Aries, which is a sign of soldiers and of conflict and war. So we will have to address that as well, because this is happening during this kind of war-torn world between, of course, Ukraine and Russia, and Israel and Gaza at the time of my recording, which is on May the 13th. So let's get started. First of all, I just put out a moon video for a full moon, and I never got so many unsubs. So I have to say, I think that I spent probably the first 25 minutes talking about the cycle of Sagittarius with war, with new moons and full moons, especially relating to what's going on in today's world. So I'm going to try to keep this a lot shorter in the mundane astrology, and I will start a new channel, The World and Our Stars, probably at the end of this year, so that I can have a whole channel dedicated to political, world event astrology, etc., separate from what you sometimes come here for, which is to know all about your sign. Now, when you're going to listen to your sign, make sure that you hit the, in the comments section, I have pinned the timestamps. Or if you hit the title of the video, that's called chapters, it'll jump you to your sign. However, if you try to do that within an hour of the live premiere, it will not be queued by YouTube yet, so you'll have to wait a little bit of time for that to synchronize, all right? I don't really have any special promotions, but if you're catching a wave of this in May, which you should be, you want to join my Cosmic Moonshine newsletter. There's contests every Sunday. I'm giving away 12 prizes every Sunday, including free readings, courses, my 2024 All Signs bundles. Now, this is May the 13th, and I've already given away a ton of prizes. And if you want to get into this kind of event every Sunday, you can only participate by being on my subscription list for my weekly forecast newsletter. It's in the description box below. All right, so let's get started and talk about the sky, and I'll show it to you as well. Before we get into the picture of the sky, the software, let me just go back over some dates, all right? And then what I'm trying to teach you is a repeating rhythmic cycle of events. The North Node is always moving through the sky every 18 and a half years into a new sign. And this means that this Mars conjunction with the North Node can only happen, right, in one sign every 18 years kind of thing. So it's like it's going to be occurring on a sort of cyclical rhythm connected to the movement of the South and North Node, which move retrograde through our sky. In this case, we're looking at the North Node. It was during the October 9th timeframe, or in middle of October, when Mars was conjunct the South Node in Libra. And we all know, including an eclipse, that that became the beginning of a war in the Middle East. Now, that means that this North Node conjunction with Mars, as Mars is traveling around the sky from Libra last October, is going to bring an energetic connection point to what Mars incited on the South Node 6 months earlier, or whatever that works out to be: October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. 8 months later. So there is a connection to this war in the Middle East. There just has to be, because it is a connection to the South Node, North Node axis in Libra, South Node, and North Node in Aries. Oh, and this is Western tropical. Now, if you go back in time to May of 1913, we saw in May of 1913 the North Node conjoining together with Mars. And that was actually just before World War I, as you might know, which broke out in, I think, the summer of July of 1914, with that whole St. Arches Ferdinand Duke guy who got shot. Okay. Brain won't remember his name. Anyway, and basically, it could be connected. But what was really also going on in 1913 was a massive upswelling of rebellion from women, because Mars is about protesting, or advocating or championing something in a warrior-like way. And it was the suffragette movement all around the world. In England, the United States, women were protesting and rebelling, wanting to have the ability to vote. Can you imagine that back then women could not vote, only men? Like, that just boggles our minds today, but that's what was happening. So there was a protest energy, a rebellion energy, a standing up for the freedom and the rights of women to have access to the political vote in their countries, in the Western world, in England and the United States. On April of 1949, now some of you know that Israel was founded in 1948. The United States, basically gave it a chunk of land and divided the land between the native Palestinian people, or Arabs that lived in Palestine, and gave Israel the larger chunk of land, believe it or not. And it's interesting that 1949 was when the United Nations Resolution 273, I have to laugh at the number of 12, it's like the hangman, but it's also the 12 tribes of Judea. Can't make this stuff up. That resolution was the admittance of Israel into the United Nations. It's interesting that all these years later, even though they split the land between, Palestine and Israel, that only Israel was allowed to join the United Nations. But that's what happened. So I want you to bookend that thought. The 1949 included the post-1948 Nakba, when a lot of 750,000 Gazan people, or not Gazans, but Palestinians, were run out of their villages, pushed into Gaza. And basically, there was still some of that going on in 1949 already. And then in 1968, after the 1967 Six-Day War, which created new boundaries in space, in which Israel now occupied land that it did not have prior to that, that is in 1968, 1 year after the 1967 war. What we saw there was a lot of things. One was the war of attrition, with Egypt battling over Suez Canal type territories and shooting guns and firing missiles or bombs or whatever effect they had back then towards Israel reciprocating. And that went on for a couple of years. It really kind of picked up in 1967, but a lot of people say the war of attrition was 1968 to 1970 between Egypt and Israel. I'm just kind of tying together Middle East stories that happen when the North Node and Mars come together in Aries. I'm just trying to tie them together for us. And because Israel is a Libra rising nation, Aries represents its house of open enemies, the adversaries you can visibly see. So you're seeing things to do with those kinds of themes. In this case, it was Egypt versus Israel, 68 to 1970. And then in 1987, we also saw the North Node come together with Mars. It actually happened in 1987 around January 29th at 14 degrees of Aries. It is 14 degrees of Aries, again, where the North Node and Rahu are coming together. North Node, Rahu, and Mars are coming together. So what happened in 1987 when it comes to themes of war? Well, India invaded Pakistan. That's interesting. Gorbachev, however, came to see in Washington President Reagan, and that was a year that they were getting the glasnost thing going, right? And that was also the fall of the Berlin Wall that year. And in 1987 as well, there was the first intifada. Intifada means uprising or rebellion amongst the people of Gaza and the West Bank against the repression and brutality of the Israel occupation. And that went on from called the first intifada, but it started in 1987 and it went on till 1993. And so we also know that in that time frame of 1987 to 1993, Hamas from the Muslim Brotherhood became the militant arm of that part of the Muslim Brotherhood. And so you can also track the creation of Hamas back to 1987 when this happened. Now, if you go listen to the history of the 1987 to 1993 first intifada, you will see that there was huge. Israel called its occupation the Iron Fist, and there was a huge, crushing, controlling occupation, and it was what the Israeli, it's what the people who had been displaced already were rebelling against. And finally, we know this is a repeating cycle. In 2005, at 18 degrees of Aries, both the North Node and Mars came together in the house of open enemies for Israel. And what Israel did was pull out of the West Bank and parts of the Gaza Strip and West Bank. And I believe there were 9,000 settlers who left Gaza, and 25 settlements were dismantled as there was a desire by Israel to remove itself from the attempt to occupy those territories because of pressure internationally for one reason. But what they did do is then create, in quotes, the largest open air prison. In other words, they basically have checkpoints and no one can leave or come into Gaza, even to get medical care. And so it became another form of repression. So just letting you know what happened in the history. Please don't unsubscribe because history bothers you, because here we are again. Here we are again on May 18th, 19th. There is the same conjunction around 14 degrees of Aries, and we're going to see things similar to what we saw probably in 1987 at 14 Aries, but it could be also the same as 2005. 1987 was the uprising of the Palestinian people against the repressive rule and occupation by the nation of Israel. Now, we have a lot going on in the world right now. We have Egypt just joining the South Africa case of genocide against Israel. That just happened on my day of recording, May 13th. We have right now the United Nations voting and having speeches to allow Palestine to become a state in the United Nations. And so we have so many big things happening. We have Joe Biden and his pink line telling, Israel, you do not want to invade Rafah. We will pull our arms funding, etc. We have big student protests, which is a typical classical North Node Chiron Mars energy. We saw 68, 69 during the student sit-ins. I predicted this would happen again. Student protests. I did it in 2 videos in December because I saw the pattern repeating of what we saw in the Vietnam War protests. What amazes me is that these protests by these young people in universities isn't about their own people going to war and soldiers dying. It is a protest for another people's. This is a different energy at that level. This is more of what the young people of United States and Europe and the world are seeing. They don't have the same sentiment as the boomer generation, who is still, unfortunately, most of the place, especially in the United States, ruling the Senate, ruling the world, ruling the, old men in power syndrome. So the young people have a different opinion. It's ironic that it was the boomer generation that was rebelling against Vietnam Wars. And now they're the ones who are the old stodgy generation, and the young people are yet again rebelling. This cycle was North Node Chiron. Cyclical storylines in Aries that happen in 68 and 69, and we're back again. Life repeats and rinses and rinses and repeats and rinses and repeats. What can you do with this in your life that isn't like about a war story? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, first of all, in India, this is a malefic yoga or union called the Angarak yoga, probably pronounced it wrong, where you can lose your head. Mars would be the noble warrior, for instance, in Aries. The yoga is just when Mars and North Node come together. In tropical Aries, Mars should be really chill. Like he should be like, I'm a noble soldier, warrior, champion, hero. By the way, I can rescue people from dangerous situations. He can be the good guy here too, a good warrior. He can give you ambition, drive. He can make you determined and focused on your agenda, your decisions and actions and directions that you wish to take. Mars rules all of those things. And those can be very strong when he's in Aries, which is one of 12 pie slices of your chart, and give you an extra determined strength. But with a North Node, you'll also may be desperate, or you may be losing your head, or you might be greedy for something, and you might not be able to reason with, Mars. You might just be out of control. Now, it doesn't always look that way. A lot will depend on how your natal Mars is positioned, how your natal Mars is either strong or weak, and the disposition of your natal Mars in your own chart. But one thing you could do to understand the energy of Mars and North Node is to look in your own history. Go to astroseek.com, look under the aspect search engine. If you know where your natal Mars is, your natal Mars is in one of 12 signs, which is one of 12 houses in your natal chart. And you could search on the search engine. It's not that hard to do. It's aspect search engine at astroseek.com. It's free. And when you go there, you could put in the sign of Mars. What your Mars isn't like Taurus. Put Mars, pick the sign Taurus, conjunct, which is the 0 degrees, North Node. And then you run it and you want to see, like, since you've been born, how many times has that happened? It's going to happen once every 18 years or so. And what happened when not only were Mars and the North Node touching each other perfectly, but don't forget, in ancient astrology, just having Mars and the North Node together in a sign, therefore a house in your chart, is enough. The influence isn't just about the date, it's about the whole time frame, right? So when did Mars enter into Aries this time, and when does he leave? Because he's been co-present with the North Node since then. But before we say that, I went back and looked for myself, and what happened when Mars and the North, well, what happened? What happened? I apologize. It's so hard to teach astrology on the fly. What I meant to do in the aspect search engine is you have to know where your natal Mars sits. And you're going to go into your aspect search engine and choose when does the North Node move through that sign, basically. Or you can do it, forget the aspect search engine. You can just do it by Googling online, North Node transit, Western astrology through the signs, okay? Because whenever the North Node was traveling through the sign where your Mars sits once every 18 years for about 18 months. That's when this energy was available for you to investigate. So the last time this happened to me, when the North Node was going through the sign of Pisces, was 2007. And I thought to myself, what did I do in that time when I had my natal Mars amplified by the North Node? And it was an interesting year because my Mars is in a money and earnings house. And two things happened. I finally made some money online by selling a product at tarot.com with drive, ambition, and focus, and which became a source of great royalty income for me. And I also made an executive and demanding decision to sell a joint property with my then ex-husband. And he listened to me, thank God, because it was just before the 2008 subprime loan scandal and the massive plunge in real estate values in US and in Canada. So I was making this kind of commanding decisions around money and focus and using the Mars and the amplification of the North Node. In Hellenistic astrology, if you're born with it, like a Mars North Node conjunction or Saturn North Node conjunction, these are two malefic planets. The North Node will expand or exacerbate the malefic quality of the planet, apparently. Whereas if it's a benefic like Venus or Jupiter, and the North Node's on the Venus and Jupiter in your chart, the North Node expands the beneficence or the goodness of the planet. To be determined, is that true or not? Are you born with North Node Mars in your sky? In the comments, let me know. Doesn't matter what sign it's in. How has that area of your chart, which of the 12 pie slices and whole sign houses that are impacted have been impacted? Has it been challenging? Like if you had North Node Mars in your marriage house, have you had difficulties in marriage and long-term relationships, or have they gone really well? Let us all know. I mean, we can learn from each other. Okay, so next, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the all signs. And what we're going to do in the all signs is we're going to talk about how this can give you drive, decision-making power, profound action action-making energies, determination, and it's really not just for, okay, let me be clear. Yes, the event in the world that can be quite exciting or whatever is happening on the 18th and 19th, but it's also Mars was co-present with the North Node for 6 weeks, and this energy has been playing out for you, me, and the world since then. So it was about April 30th that Mars slipped into the sign of Aries, and he left the sign of Aries, or will be leaving. Sorry, he will be leaving the sign of Aries on June the 8th. So keeping that in mind is important. I mean, it's been an energy of the North Node sitting here with Chiron, with the eclipses, and then Mars has been trundling through this part of the sky as well. So if you want to go back in your own life, what was going on around April 30th and can be continuing through to June 8th, that looks like you've been having a huge amount of determination or ambition, willpower, decisions and actions in the part of your sky that represents Aries, right? And I'll be saying how that looks for me as an example once we move into your sign. But look at it as a cyclical energy that happens to be occurring here, that is only available once every 18 years. And that's what matters. This was last happening in the fall of 2004, all of 2005, and into early 2006, in which the North Node was moving through the sign of Aries. So you'd have to go back to that time in your life to compare notes. But like, get the gist of the vibe, right? It's like, okay, it's here. As I said earlier, the actual conjunctions were happening. This was last conjunct on July the 9th, 2005. And before that, January of 1987. If you want to go back and look at cycles, it helps to be a comparing notes type of astrologer, because then you can see how things are repeating and how you might deal with them by predicting the future based on observing the past. I smell like a burning smell. I just opened my window because it's so hot here and someone's burning something. But oh well, say la vie, burning, right? That's Mars. Hot, burning, explosives, devices. Oh my God, you can't make this stuff up. Okay, guys, let's go for the idea of. It just happens to be weirdly cued here to Sagittarius. So let's move it back so we can always look at the lens to all the Aries, energy in the front end of the story. Hang on. Holy man. Okay. Ready? There we have it. So there we see Mars North Node coming into that conjunction on May the 18th and 19th. And it will be available or felt by all of us probably as early as the 16th of May, and we'll be feeling it through to about the 20th of May. Okay. There's a before and after energies. So from the 16th to the 20th of May, we're under this influence, maybe even the 21st of May. Let's go 16th to the 21st of May. We are feeling this collectively, but we've been feeling the vibration of it since the beginning of April 30th when Mars entered here, where the North Node was co-present, and it won't be winding down completely until June the 8th. And by the June 8th, 9th, he's moving into Taurus. So keep all of that in mind. And the historical dates you want to listen to for your sign, I told you in the beginning, I'll say it one more time, go back to, let's be serious, I don't think anyone here is going to remember 1949, or maybe 1968, but it would have been March of 68, January of 87, July of 2005, and here we are again, not to be seen again until 2043. So big pivotal points are happening in the sky regarding the story of war, ambition, willpower, drive, and in your own world as well. So I wanted to mention one simple thing. We do see some flowing energy to the asteroid Minerva, who, like Athena, this is the Roman version of Athena, the Greek goddess of war, and Minerva eventually became a part of Warcraft as well. And so we can see that Mars is in a beautiful 14-degree flow. Let's move it forward by a day so we can see the exactitude of a 14-degree to 15-degree vibe. It's pretty close. So we're seeing Mars connecting to the goddess of war, Athena / Minerva, but also wisdom and knowledge in a harmonious way. Athena is in the house of open enemies for the United States of America, Netanyahu and Biden, who are all Sagittarius risings. Mars is in the house of open enemies for the natal chart of Israel. We're definitely looking at some events going on to do with those parts of the world that are engaging in warcraft and with whom the word enemies and open enemies is in play. And people will always say something like, what about Iran? I think Iran is out of the game. They do not want this. They've got their own problems. They are a Leo rising. If you're going to have problems with them, it might be this fall. And the other part of the story is, where is the pink line, red line, whatever line is supposed to be happening in the United States. When is it going to be drawn? Is it going to be drawn? Is there really a red line? As I'm recording, a UN staff member or more was just killed in Rafah today. This is May 13th, breaking headlines. And honestly, don't forget, Ukraine and Russia are also having problems, right? A lot going on there. But Putin is a Scorpio rising, it looks like, by all intents and purposes. And this is all offside of the Putin narrative. And I'm not too sure that this involves that narrative. There are a couple of charts for Russia, depending on you use the ancient Russian chart, a couple of them from the 1999 timeframe. We'll do a separate video on that, but in one day soon. But basically, Russia has basically told the United States, if you F with us here, we're going to drop a nuclear bomb. So basically, I have a feeling that story is delayed until after the November election, when we see which president in the United States comes into power, and everything is kind of on hold there, at least from the United States perspective. So here we have your story, and that your story matters. It's not just about the world. So hopefully we'll get going now and talk about that. You can see that United States asteroid America is with Pluto, and that's also in a whole sign, okay, flow to the goddess of strategic victories in war in the house of open enemies. But this is also China's ascendant. So maybe China's going to try to do an intervention and broker peace in the Middle East and step up. And I wouldn't be surprised if Xi doesn't try something like that, honestly. Okay, so let's talk about your sign. Aries, we're starting with you. Aries, sun, moon, and rising. Let's go with keywords: decisions, action, and willpower. On steroids, about something you wish to accomplish as you, by you, because of you, because you are Mars North Node. You are ambitiously powerful right now and have been feeling that powerful ambitiousness of self since April 30th to June the 8th. Now, what could happen here is an intensity building up around how you want to be more militaristically victorious and strategic with things to do with your third house, your online world, social media, writing projects, neighbors, sibling, and extended cousin relationships are on the agenda. Or be more strategic and take aim when it comes to things to do with your travel plans. Now, as an Aries sun and moon, because sun can be about how you approach your career ambitiously, moon your home life, and I have both, I have really been trying to be more strategic and victorious as a Athenian / Minervian warrior in how I approach my social media schedule, as I plan to travel on the El Camino and won't be able to produce content. So I'm trying to pre-produce it. That's the drive, ambition, willpower on steroids. However, what happens when the North Node exacerbates the energy to an extreme on the 18th and 19th, a few days before and after? Does that look like burnout? Possibly. Does it look like intense successful completions? Maybe. So look at your own life and say, well, where have I been really hyper striving, super ambitious, super focused, super decisive, super willpowered up ever since April the 30th? And now it's coming to an intensity. Now, Mars cuts, ends, and severs. That's his job. He likes to sever, cut, and end shit. And you got a sword in your hand. So you could also be wielding that sword at your boss up here, or your colleagues over here, or your main squeeze partner over here, right? Or your children over here. So you are the one with this sort of fly off the handle potential at other people around you. So be very careful, especially this weekend, right? Which is where it's most intense. That's going to be in my time zone, a Saturday, Sunday, that you don't cut something off from a place of reckless and over inflamed anger, intensity, or ambition. Because with the Pluto story in your 11th house, This has the quality of wanting to power up your gains in your career and to do much, much better than you have any time in your life. But you got to ask yourself, if you're going to have great career gains or expansion of your friendship circles with more powerful and wealthy and potent people, what cost could it be? Because the North Node, definitely Rahu, can definitely make us lose our head and be overly inflamed about our ambitious goals, willpower, and drive. So watch for that and be a little bit more cautious. Mars is the exaltation lord of your 10th house of career. And when he's in the first house of you, he's an ambition, an achiever on amazing steroids. And, muscle builders take steroids and they pay the price. So be more cautious this weekend, because whatever happens, you could regret your reckless losing of your head. All right, Taurus, sun, moon, and rising. This is a story here of Mars moving through your 12th house, which is very subtle. I'll tell you what it's good for: quitting the vape, quitting the wine, quitting the beer, quitting the thing that undoes yourself. So Mars likes to end, cut, and sever, therefore quit. And quitters can be winners when it comes to substance abuse or addictions or dependencies. And that may be what you're looking at here, because Chiron wants to heal a wound here since 2019, and you want to sever, cut, and end it. And you may be having the willpower since April 30th to June 8th to begin to do that snipping. But this is also that intensity, that desperation, maybe even, reckless energy that can happen when we see Rahu so closely involved. Rahu is the North Node. And I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the video to compare past timeframes, and I hope everyone can go back and listen. But this last intensity occurred for you in the July of 2005 window, or January of 1987 per se. And if you're old enough to remember those times, you may be able to compare the notes here for yourself. I have a Taurus son, a daughter who would only be 6 years old at that time. Well, she wasn't quitting any addictions that I know of, unless it was jelly beans, but you know what I mean. Rahu can represent the foreigner. It also is involved in politics and Indian astrology, but the foreigner and the foreign shores can be the 12th house as well. And so there's a travel, Mars, ending, cutting, severing, or activity connected to foreign places and foreign people, with the flow here to the Minerva wisdom goddess and knowledge goddess, but also victory and war in the house of resources and earnings and the way you sustain your life. You have enough money, you have enough food, you have shelter, all the good things of life that you need here, thrive and survive. You're being very strategic about your finances. And Pluto says, like, strategic financial considerations as it connects to the career, basically. So maybe some of you may actually make a decision to take some action regarding your earning situation. And that may look like, especially if you go back to the fall when Mars was on the South Node in your work house, what changes were you making and letting go of maybe one job or making some changes in the work story last fall? Because that would have been October. And now we are having a new story as Mars crosses the North Node side of the narrative and expands on. You may have let go of something in the work and career space or health addiction space last October, and now we're coming to the expansion of the same narrative with a great deal of intensity. And it has to do with money, earnings, or things you put in your mouth, right? Because the second house is things that you put in your mouth and swallow. And therefore, that is also, again, back to what you need to quit eating or drinking or smoking as well. But also can be where you need to think about powering up Pluto, ops for opportunity and good things happening after times of difficulty, money, career narratives for all of you Tauruses, sun, moon, and rising. This will be in play all the way through till June the 8th, when you still have Mars in Aries. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. So in essence, what you have here is you have the energy of Mars with the North Node being in your field of energy ever since April 30th and completing June the 8th, but more importantly, the critical weekend energy Of the 19th of May, I give 3 days before and after at least, where these two come together in the house of social groups and friendships. Now, classically, Mars can be very aggressively cutting some of those friends away from you, but you can also have disagreements with them. And with the North Node, you might want to be careful on the weekend that you don't have a massive disagreement with a long-term friend. Even if you do, I'm wondering if it's a better thing than not because of the strategic and wise goddess of military conquest and wisdom and knowledge, Minerva, who is looking at this Mars Rahu from the perspective of your own knowledge and wisdom about which friends, which groups of belonging you need to cut away from. Now, we earn money in our salaries from our 11th house because it is second from the 10th. And therefore, I think a lot of you might even be looking at cutting away in an executive decision making the increases of your gains in your career in order to be more strategic or more wise. And you may make some decisions about what you wish to remove from your earning stories. I mean, with Pluto in your 9th house, you're really leaning into a dharmic life path. You want to find deeper meaning and purpose in your life. And I have a progressed sun in Gemini, and I can relate. I'm sometimes thinking, am I just going to be a astrological weather girl? Is that what I was born for? Like, really? So keep that in mind. Revising one's longer dreams, goals, and plans can happen in a radical turnaround. For your 11th house represents that. And on the weekend slash, 18th, 19th, give or take a few days on either side, you might just suddenly go kaboom. I'm changing my entire game plan for my 5-year, 10-year life plan, wish, dream, and goal, and making something new happen. And, I do think that's important to note that this Minerva is flowing to this very serious and sober-minded Saturn in your house of career and reputation. And a lot of what this money, career, reputation story is about at this juncture seems to be about strategic, victorious wisdom that you can apply to maybe restrain or contain some of the struggles you've been having. When Saturn's in the 10th house, you're just working too hard. And some of you may also be getting ready to retire out of something by 2026 as Saturn, the sage and the wise man and the old one, Chronos, the chronocator, is moving through tick tock, your house of career. And some of the decisions you're making, thanks to Mars around earnings this weekend, are stepping stones toward that story of maybe working hard, if not too hard, and getting ready to slow it down by 2026 or shift gears. Elder siblings belong to the 11th. This is a one sibling, one older than you, like in biological age. So the sibling just one above you is also there. And there may be some strategic agreements, but also some conflicts with that sibling coming up on this weekend. Don't forget, you started something in that 5th house last October. We all did something in letting go, decisions and will and actions to let go of something in the Libra part of our sky last October when Mars and the North Node came together here. And now you're going to be taking that, letting go and adding something better, making more decisions about that story. And what you were letting go of here in your 5th house has to do with creative and entrepreneurial projects or romantic love stories or children matters, right? But what I see too much career stuff here. So for some of you, it's creative and entrepreneurial matters that you had to release or surrender, or even a challenging relationship with a love partner or sibling in October. All right, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. Is what's going on here is that you have the movement of Mars from about, April 30th to June the 8th. And with the North Node co-present, you've been super ambitious, maybe super driven around work matters, but also super ready to cut or end something, or even having conflicts and difficulties sometimes with those with whom you work in a larger social setting of the work environment. But some of you may have quit jobs as a response to this energy, or been driving and passionately engaged in trying to be successful in your visible reputation and career zone. Now, with the North Node conjunction happening, don't forget it's taking cue from what was surrendered last October as Mars North Node, South Node came through an action plan here. So what were you surrendering last October to do with the home, the nest, things you're doing in and from the home that are now culminating in a North Node decision-making process, an action-taking plan? Like, let's say at the best, your achievement, drive, and ambition have hit a real crescendo on the 18th and 19th. The worst is you lose your head and quit your job. So it's got both things going. And because reputation is here, and I mean like my reputation is status. I'm married, widowed, divorced, single, that kind of thing also is up for intensity. Mars exalts your house of marriage, and he's crossing the North Node in the house of reputation. And there is a possibility of a massive intense shift in that status as you say, start or quit a major relationship, and your relationship publicly becomes, well, different, right? You're healing chironic wounds around purpose and work as well since 2019. This could be a pivotal decision-making time where you're really knowing which the next direction is for the work you wish to do. And the strategic victory goddess in war, Minerva is giving you guidance and advice from deep within your unconscious, from deep within your dreams at night, deep within your reveries and your internal inner knowing, right, of the 12th house. Very subtle strategic wisdom is being offered to you from deep within the non-mental and more spiritual, or the Sufis would say, the knowing heart. I often saying to myself, we would like to think thinking is better than feeling, or some people want to go feeling is better than thinking, but really neither is better than the other. What is optimal is knowing. And so you're trying to go deeper within yourself for the inner knowing of what strategic changes and decisions you want to make and action plans you want to take. And you will be coming into that window of time of that strategic knowing, informing new actions and decisions in your work and career and reputation space. This 19th of May, 3 days before and after, and the waning influence of Mars leaving the story by June the 9th. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, Leo, what I'm drinking is kombucha, not beer. It's yerba mate because I need to get some energy. I'm tired today. Ooh. So, Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. The energy here is going to be like an intensity around actions, decisions, and hopefully not flying off the handle. When it comes to those ninth house stories, I'm wondering if some of you may be making some executive decisions around father figures, or the father figure is having major action in their life, ninth house people, but also travel to foreign countries, plans or taking those trips. Also, Leo, Rahu, North Node are up there in the house of academic environments, publishing environments, the good old house of courts and legal matters. So if you're invested in trying to win in a court case, for example, this could be quite intense because it could be your warrior lawyer going to town. And so the energies here are intense, and Mars has been here since the 30th. And he's been with the North Node since April 30th. He leaves by June the 8th. And that energy field is super hyperactive for you. What does Mars want you to do up here? He wants you to be maybe leaning more ambitiously into making your actions and decisions based on your dharma, a deeper discerning wisdom about what's purposeful and meaningful in your life for you. Mars exalts the house of work, and a lot of this might be meaningful work, especially with a stellium in your 10th house. And you're making action plans and decisions. Even travel can be involved, or legal matters regarding meaningful work and service in this life. 6th house matters. Mars is also in a flow to both whole sign, flow to Pluto, and also to Minerva. Certainly with the Pluto energy, you're bringing new and more powerful people into your world, but this can also look like legal battles fomenting around marriage and marriage separations. Here, though, with Athena, marriage being separations and long-term committed love, and decisions around that could be propelled forward on the 19th of May, 3 days before and after. But here's victory in war. Strategic Athena can be a friend or an elder sibling who has some strategic advice and guidance for you as you deal with this Mars story. Mars is flowing to you. Mars is giving you a lot of good energy, even as he crashes into the North Node. And for you, this might be a very exciting and stimulating time, especially as I said, the 18th, 19th. And this may be not at all a challenge. You might be going, this feels amazing. I'm ambitiously pursuing my book publishing deal. I'm ambitiously excited and feel destined to go to that foreign country trip that I've been thinking of, or I'm on the trip, or you meet some kind of destined person, especially a male in a foreign shore or from a foreign place. Religious and spiritual philosophy is up here. And you may be coming into some new understanding of a deeper, true calling around what your spiritual path is. And what did you let go of down here in October? Did you let go of a sibling relationship, a neighborhood situation, a learning environment? Did you leave one school? And is this an ambitious thing to put yourself into a new educational path? These are all very possible. All right, this is a Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising folk. It is a movement here of Mars through your eighth house of chunky money with the North Node. Now, let's say the North Node Rahu can represent things that are fated or destined, monies that don't belong to you from a bank, a loan, an inheritance, shared spousal resources could be very intensely activated. Oh my God, a giant like bee or hornet just came in my window. Shite. Okay, I'm just going to let it go. I'm allergic to wasps, not to bees. Let's not blow up in front of you guys. So Mars inflammation. Now you can't make this stuff up, right? We start the video. I smell burning outside. Mars. Then I'm doing a Mars video with a North Node and a wasp type thing or a hornet comes floating into my window, which stings, right? So this is like, okay, the universe is having fun with me today. Sense of humor. Oh my God. It's a simulation. If you haven't figured it out, let me tell you, we're in a simulation. This is a simulation. Okay, guys, let's continue. So you might want to go back. In the beginning, I told everyone the dates. Go back to 2005, go back to 1987. Virgos, did you have any kind of expansion and destined chunky money coming to you in those windows of time? Can you go back and can you remember? I believe, for example, my Virgo rising daughter in 2005, I believe that would be where she got some of the inheritance from my mom's death because finally the estate settled and there was money put into a trust fund from there was a car accident, and there was a lawsuit about the guy whose logging truck hit my mom. I know it's a little TMI, but my daughter ended up with a small dispensation from my grandmother by the courts, and that went into a trust fund. It was nothing, but I believe it was 2005 that the trust was created. So there's an example of chunky money coming through the sky for my child at that time. Now, North Node is also about that intensity. I don't think it's about you. You're not thinking, you don't have access to the 8th house. It's not your mindset, right? But watch out for big disagreements around financial matters with a significant other, especially a long-term love partner or a business partner. Some kind of real battle for the money or disagreements about the funds may pick up on the 18th, 19th of May. But Mars has been here, since April 30th to June the 8th with the North Node, and jointly held finances and resources regarding banks, real estate matters, inheritance monies, and shared partner monies has been on your agenda. With the strategic Athena and the victory of war goddess in the 10th house, she is aligning herself for strategic decisions around the chunky money connected to your longer term goals in your career and reputation matters. And you may have set your side to let go of some money and earnings. I know my girlfriend let go of a business partnership in her real estate business back then. My daughter quit a job to start a new one. What did you let go of in October around your earnings and money stories? Because this is now taking it to the other side of unearned income expanding for you. And you'll see evidence of that through to June the 8th. But this weekend in particular, 3 days before and after the 19th, see what expands in your chunky money. And let me know in the comments what happens. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. Wow, it's a story, isn't it? To see that Mars is in your seventh house of marriage and significant relationships. Oh my God. Let's go into it. Let's start off the basics. You know, Mars entered here in April and leaves here, right? In this part of sky, June 9th. That can mean that your partner's been very aggressive, very ambitious, very focused in something in their life, very on it. But it's also your legal contracts house. I know a Libra whose company just folded and he got laid off, for example. So legal contracts and agreements with significant others can fall apart, like a contract for employment, but also your partner in life, especially in love, may have been ambitiously aggressive. So that's a thought, right? And they may also been a little bit sharp or swordsman like towards you, but it is a noble Mars in Aries, and it probably hasn't been that. My daughter's partner is a Libra, and she was running a marathon. So being athletic, another Mars word. His partner, my daughter's husband, my daughter's boyfriend, would have seen my daughter, his partner is a Libra rising, a Libra sun, as being athletic. It's so simple, athletic. There's my partner being like an Aries Mars of athlete in my viewpoint, right? So simple. But here we have this intensity in the house of business partnerships, legal contracts and agreements, and of course, significant love relationships or Libras. This can also be a significant person in your life, a friend that's really important. And there can be an intensity flaring up on the 19th of May, give or take 3 days. So watch for that to look like interpersonal conflict. Can also be with a significant client or business partner. With strategic Athena in the house of pilgrimages, foreign lands, academic environments, and book publishing, that can also involve those elements during this weekend ahead. Because you were sort of letting go of something here in October that you felt personally connected to, right? In the house of you, Mars was cutting, severing, and ending with the South Node letting go in October of something. And as you were letting that go, we're coming full circle 8 months later into what you're striving for, but through other people. So you might be able to connect those thematic dots as well. We love Pluto in your fifth house if you're an entrepreneur or artist, of course, because it's powering up that Mars at this time, allowing for entrepreneurial and creative projects also to reach a marketplace or an audience, that's your seventh house, with great intensity. And some of that may be what you're seeing on May the 18th and 19th. Do you ever take 3 days on either side? Mars leaves here June the 9th, and this intensity in your seventh house is going to go away. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. Here we have Mars moving through the sky with a crash into the North Node. And that's happening in the sixth house of work and health matters, sometimes pets, tenancies, and rentals. I want you to go back to April 30th, and this is ending June 9th, because this has been playing out. Either you've been like working it really hard in your work, right? Your colleague, coworker, employee, employer space, and you've been driven, ambitious, and successful. You'll also be making changes here, and you might even be getting quitting or changing your job. So I have a Scorpio rising sun who's thinking of moving to another division, another geographical location in his company. And that's been ongoing for him in his mind since April 30th through to June the 8th. It's so obvious. But on the other hand, you have pets here, and Mars is sharp. And North Node is intense. So intense things going on with pets, including perhaps the loss of a pet. You also have rental agreements here, and there's sharp decisions and contractual energies and lawsuit energies when Mars is here can be very intense regarding land, property, real estate, and just life in general. With Athena in the house of chunky money and Mars in the sixth house, matters to do with mortgages, banks, and loans and debts are on your radar, especially on the weekend, especially on the 18th and 19th. But with Pluto powering up in a sextile to Mars in a whole sign trine, some of that looks like authentic wealth and power from the home, from your family of origin, or from matters to do with real estate. And I do like this if anybody's looking to buy or sell real estate, and Mars is simply about the ambition and drive, to look at the situation from rental contract agreement angles or changing your home for work-related reasons, etc. Conflict in the workplace could flare if you're in an employee situation, and You may have a sudden intensity around, the 19th, 3 days before and after. So watch out for that. That could look like you wanting to quit your job or someone quitting in the workplace, or a big intensity there. And it can look like a flare of disagreements even. So be cautious around that as well. All right, this is for the Gemini, Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Mars is moving through since the 30th of April to the 8th of June, your house of children and romance and sexuality. This is your fifth house. Now, look, he loves it here. He's competitive. He's athletic here, and he's ambitiously, romantically engaged in sexual energy if you're interested in that. So it could be very sizzling hot for sex, for example. But it's also conflict maybe and disagreements, or a child moving out of the house, or some intensity regarding one of your children. And it's really good for passionate, ambitious focus and drive and creative and entrepreneurial projects. Now, this has been going on April 30th, as I said, to June the 8th. Now we hit that May 19th, crashing, ambitious drive, success energy is possible with the North Node on the 19th regarding entrepreneurial creative projects, or a super intense moment in a romantic relationship or with one of your children. It's got the destiny feature on it. If a kid suddenly says, I'm moving away, I'm moving out of the house, if they're, I'm getting out of here, let them go. It's meant to be. You're kind of bookending from the October South Node Mars, letting go, ending in friendships, larger plans and goals of your life, or money that you could have made from your career. There was a releasing there in October. And now the Mars North Node thing is amplifying your creativity, your artistry, your muse, and your joy, and wanting to really dive in. But I'll tell you, Mars here is competitive as all hell. So your competitive spirit is up and running. You have a strategic assist over here from Athena in the house of legal contracts, agreements, significant others. And you may be getting some support from your spouse or someone like a spouse to help you keep this fantastical spirit of competition and drive alive in your fifth house. And then also with Pluto supporting everything here in a whole sign flow to the North Node and a trine to Athena. Minerva, it kind of looks to me like also some of this intensity could involve travel. Now, normally Mars isn't just traveling in the fifth house, but because he could though, for pleasure and leisure. But I do see the Pluto could offer up this weekend some intense opportunities for shorter distance travel connected to business partnerships, legal matters, or significant others in your Sagittarius life. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. Here we have the story of an ambitious Mars, super wanting to take executive action and command. It is happening in your fourth house. And it's been here since the 30th of April through to June the 9th, but now he's crashing into the North Node on the 19th of May. You want to give it a couple of 3 days on either side. And when you want to go back, as I said earlier, to 2005, 1987, you want to compare notes, right? So I hope you listened to the beginning of the video, people. So you're going to say something like, I want to construct my new home. I want to renovate my home. I want to cut away from and sever my home. I want to change my home. I want to travel from home. I want to move from home. These are good Mars fourth house narratives. But the Rahu means also the foreigner. Okay, so there can be, and this is an expat exile signature. Some of you may be looking at some potential desire or passionate plan to move far, far away from home and into another country, or sell a property or let go of a property in order to increase your success or wealth even. Now, you've been feeling like lost and alone and not at home since 2019. There's a lot of Capricorn rising, especially, where is my home? Where is my home? Capricorn Sun feel the same thing because they're looking for a home connected to career, and Capricorn Moon just don't know where the hell they're supposed to nest. And so a lot of Capricorns are feeling denested since 2019. And so I guess for Capricorn Sun, it's about career matters really, but Capricorn Moon and Rising, it's just where am I supposed to live in the world? Now, there's an intensity around that question on May the 18th and 19th. And the answer may be coming from strategic Athena in your sixth house of work. You just might get a job that's going to move you somewhere. You might get a career move that's going to give you a decision about where to go next, okay? Or a rental contract agreement that aligns with what you need and want coming through the sky on the weekend. Now, be careful you don't lose your head here, or you don't get a reckless kind of radical, impulsive decision-making process going around moving, traveling, rentals, home, change of home. Like, just be cautious around that, because I'm not too sure always that the North Node has his head about him. He's, losing one's head about intensity. Because you had the South Node up here with Mars in October, you were kind of really, you were either letting go of a career ambition or a career goal, or you were able to make some decisions, Mars, and take some actions around maybe a destined career direction in October. And it might be coming to a fruitfulness now. And there's a kind of a bookend from what started up in your life 8 months ago. We got some strategic guidance from Athena, of course, here. But I also would say Pluto wants to wealth you up, right? Strategic Athena and victory with Pluto, ops here. This is about like getting on board for greater earnings and resources and material success and possessions. But it is connected to work and home matters for many of you Capricorns. This is a house of the mother, and you could have an exacerbation with the mother relationship. Be careful, especially with Mars opposite the moon at the time of the conjunction. In your case, be very careful for some kind of mother blowout in your story, that could look very difficult and very harmful to a relationship to a mother or mother figure. All right, Aquarius, I'm one of you, and I'm a rising. This is for a rising sun and moon. I mean, I said compare notes to everyone to 87 and 2005, because this is Mars in your third house of neighbors and neighborhoods. This is also happening in 1968, just so you know. I was only 6, so I would say I started kindergarten or something, or grade 1. But there is also, this is the house of a younger sibling and siblings in general. And Mars is busy moving through here since April 30th through to June the 8th. What kinds of intensity around actions, decisions, purpose, and passionate movements, like, inflammation of decisions that are powered up by, extensive willpower, determination, have been ongoing for you here. For me, this is the third house of social media platforms, and I have been, if not burning out, right, April 30th to June the 8th, growing my channel. Like, I think I stupid like 6,000 subscribers last month. So it's been, maybe worth it. But, Mars with the North Node is like, you don't know when to stop, right? You're like gonna like fry here. So what have you guys been doing? This is travel, short distance travel. This is siblings, especially younger relationships. This is things to do with cousins, neighbors, and neighborhood. And Mars is really competitive as well in Aries. And you've been doing a lot of competition with the neighbors or your siblings or something like that. It's flowing to you, so it's not so bad. It's not like Mars is going to really cause much harm to you and how you feel as an Aquarius. Back in October, you had to let go of a ninth house matter. You're kind of like October, Mars, Rahu, Mars and South Node, K2 energies were playing out. What were you releasing and surrendering, letting go of in a ninth house area, which is academics, book publishing, foreign lands, and travel, in order for you to move into this time of greater focus and extension of Mars's passionate energies? North Node is amplifying him. Back in October, what was I letting go of? I was traveling to another country, actually. I was getting ready to go, and I did go to the United States for a couple of months. So it could have also just been foreign travel, because South Node means you've been there before. And yeah, indeed, my kids were born in the United States. So travel to places you've been before that happened in October also can be connected to this new direction that Mars is trying to put up a storm for, regarding a change in your neighborhood. All right. Or regarding a change or some directional intensity and decisions around travel and travel plans. Now, I'm on a El Camino pilgrimage coming up, and I'll be doing that before the June 9th transit of Mars out of the house of travel. So that's really just about also pilgrimages and travel and stuff like that for me, for example. When I go back to like 2005 and I think about what was I doing then and what was I doing in 1987 in these areas, I was succeeding in both 1987 and 2005 pretty dramatically in my career path. And in 87, that would have been, I'm just trying to remember 87. Oh my gosh. I traveled to Hungary and all of that when the Berlin Wall fell. I was in Eastern Europe. I forgot about traveling that then to do all of that stuff. I think I'm remembering. No, that was in 1987. I traveled to Egypt and Greece. Okay, we're going back to me basically traveling. I'm trying to connect the dots with North Node Rahu, foreigner energy, and then in the summer of 2005, comparing notes. Oh, I think I was traveling, but I was also, you got to remember, the third house isn't just travel. It's your daily life, it's your neighbors and neighborhoods, and those things were also perhaps in a big period of change and flux. In July of 2005, I moved into a new neighborhood and home. In 1987, I moved into a new neighborhood and home. So these cycles do repeat. So maybe this is indication for some of us that we're going to change our neighborhood or and where we live. We're going to travel a bit from where our neighborhood, or leave our neighborhood behind. And if you've been finding if you have a sibling one younger than you, there may be a lot of focus on that sibling April 30th to June the 8th. Not necessarily a negative way. It does sextile you. With a strategic Athena in the house of entrepreneurship, it's all said and done. Entrepreneurial endeavors and creative projects are fortified by a strategic goddess of victory, looking at the third house matter of the online world and the local neighborhood and the shops and restaurants around you. Also, strategic Athena and Pluto are powering up. You're trying to be more strategic around creative projects and wealth that you can generate or power that you can generate. And a lot of this has to do with what you want to do here. Honestly, third house has so many meanings, it makes me dizzy. Writing projects, marketing and selling, websites, social media stuff. Intensity on the 19th, 3 days before and 3 days after. I'll let you know how that goes. I don't know if this weekend is where I completely burn out on content creation, which is what strategic Athena is doing by having me produce all of the content for June. Well, I'm in the month of May producing May content, so that I'm on an El Camino walk until the third week of June kind of thing, and I do not need to be making content on a spiritual pilgrimage. All right, moving on to Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Hit the like button, subscribe. If you're a regular, don't forget. I adore you guys. Don't forget, you're always in my hearts. I don't name you all anymore. I used to always shout out to, but thank you for being in the regular premieres with me. Alrighty, the Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising. This is all about your money. Okay, this is your earnings and resources and possessions. Mars here is a self-starter, and you can also spend more than you want, but he's very strong in Aries, and he's spending more wisely than he otherwise would. And so April 30th to June the 8th, that's a story. Spending, resources, possessions, self-starter, entrepreneurial energies can happen here. Independent financial energies. Pioneering for your money as well. Also cutting away foods and things you shouldn't eat because they're not good for you. He cuts, severs, and ends. But he's very much going to hit an intensity coming up on the 19th. And you want to go 3 days before and after. What is that intensity about? It can be an intense increase, perhaps, of your resources and earnings and possessions. That's very destined. And with strategic Athena in the fourth house of real estate and land and property, maybe the acquisition of a real estate or piece of property, especially with Juno here, looking like maybe you could be signing a legal agreement regarding real estate, land, and property. But also you may possess other things like a new car here. But your earnings is trying to heal a wound that you've been feeling since 2019. Your earnings, and you're hitting a kind of critical intensity on the 19th, 3 days before and after. Of course, go back to 2005 and 1987 to compare notes. Listen to my video intro for the exact dates. Here, I'd say go back to what you were having to deal with in the 8th house of inheritances and shared monies with a spouse in October. I believe for my sister, who's a Pisces rising, she and her partner took possession of inheritance monies and stuff from his dad's passing and his mom's passing. And that was that story in October when the South Node and Mars were here. But now 8 months later, we have Mars in your opposite house. And now you're doing something like actions, decisions, and directions connected to finances and maybe property and real estate, or matters to do with your home. You may buy something for the home, for example. Pluto's powering up a lot of energy from your 12th house. This is very good for a lot of Pisces to let go of those self-sabotaging eating and smoking and drinking habits. Mars is the god of the elimination diet when he goes to your second house, and Pluto gives you the power, and Ops gives you the happy ending to let go of unhealthy digestive substances or habits or addictions. You can have very sharp speech here. It is a house of speech. You may be boldly speaking, but it doesn't seem to be too bad because it's also flowing to the strategic goddess here in the house of your home. So conversation can be intense on the 19th, give or take, 3 days on either side, but it's supporting some strategic planning, actions, and victory with home, property, land, and real estate matters. And I think that's all I have to say, Pisces. I hope that's useful for you and that you can use this material to make the most of a very intense conjunction this weekend that also can be very positive for you, especially given this fourth house aspect. Thank you for listening. It's victory, right? So if you were trying to buy a property and you may be with the moon in the house of mortgages, you could victoriously buy or sell property around this particular energy of the 19th of May, 3 days before and after. So I'm hoping that for some of you, my daughter has a property on the market with her husband. My sister, I hate to tell you guys this, but my youngest sister is like my daughter. And I can tell you 100 reasons why. Not like my real daughter, but I always mix them up. I always say that names crisscrossing each other because it's like in a past life, my younger sister must have been my child, or because I'm the eldest, I've always felt like her mother. Take your pick. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I'm recording this on May 13th for my Patreon community who gets early access, ad-free content. You want to join me? It's only $5 a month. You get 2 free courses, Chiron, the Key to Purpose, and Synastry Relationship course. Just trying me out. Take the courses, run with the courses. You don't have to stick around. I'm not going to hold you to it, but give my Patreon community a try and see what you think. Thanks, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Ciao for now. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, weekend ahead.